Welcome back, everyone, to this week's edition of the AAA Show. I am your host, Jared Down. To start things off today, we'll be bringing on Connor Gabriel, forward of the Warman Wildcats. And then after, we'll go through some commitments from around the Alberta Elite Hockey League and the Saskatchewan League and the Manitoba AAA League. So with that, we'll send it to Connor. Hey Connor, how's it going today?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. How's things up in the city there with training and everything?
It's pretty good. With Warman, we've been practicing 3 times a week and workouts 2 times a week. A few of the guys went home though, so kind of missing them.
How many guys out of the whole squad are still up in the city?
12 to 14 are still there. I think.
Go ahead. Sorry.
A few of them are still coming back just for a few skates, but that's about it.
How's everyone trying to stay positive through it all?
Everybody, we are still communicating and we're just being friends. Nobody's getting in fights or anything. Just having a positive attitude, trying to get better and improve every practice and workout we have together.
Yeah, I know talking to a lot of players so far, they've been utilizing this time to, maybe fine-tune some parts of their game. For you, what have you been working on personally?
I've been working on my offensive ability, finding options in the offensive zone and working on my shot and shot placement.
How do you think this limited sessions helped your game? Have you seen improvements in those areas?
Yeah, I've seen my shots been getting better and I've been able to score more in practice. And my passing has been better in the offensive zone and getting into open spaces.
Okay. I want to transition to talk a little bit about your U15 AA playing days. Your first year here with the Generals. Was that your first taste of AA hockey?
Well, I played Bantam AA or Pee Wee AA both years. And then that was all right.
Bantam went with the hitting and everything.
It took a little bit to get used to. It was a lot different, and it was a lot faster compared to Pee Wee. You had to get your head up and watch every move so you don't put yourself in a bad situation.
You had a decent year that year. You had 18 points in 31 games. Transitioning into your second year, you've seen a bit of an offensive explosion. You went to a different team that year. You went with the Bandits. What kind of went into that decision?
Well, the coach I didn't get picked by the same team as the year before, but I really liked Scott Owens as well. And then Ashley Buckberger picked me the next year. And I really enjoyed that team. I didn't really have a choice in what team I went to, though.
Going through that second year at Bantam, just kind of walk me through that season. You played with a lot of offensively gifted players. How was that season as a whole?
I really enjoyed it. We had a good group of kids. The room was really good, and I feel like we just came together as a team really quick and learned how each other played.
You had a heck of a year statistically, 61 points, 30 games. What all went right that season for your production to translate so well onto the score sheet?
Well, just teammates putting the puck in the net and being able to get in open spots and putting the puck where I wanted it. And then our power play clicked really quickly, so we got points at the start of the season as well. You
played with some pretty talented first years that year that are probably going to go fairly high in the draft. This upcoming year for the WHL Bantam draft, Berkeley Catton, Trey Wilk, and a couple others. Just kind of talk to me what you saw in them as the first years with being so gifted.
Well, they just came into the league with a lot of confidence. You don't see that with a lot of first-year players. They just came in, showed their skill, and showed that they were top dogs in that league.
Were you able to notice right away that they're going to be able to put up the points that they could just by going through training camp and practices, or was it kind of into your first couple of games that holy cow, these guys are pretty good?
No, you could tell in practice. You could tell they were making every pass. Every shot was a good shot, no bad ones. And then they always put in a hard work ethic in practice.
Were you able to get a lot of playing time on the same lines as some of those guys?
I was a second line center after Berkeley, so I only got to play with Berkeley on the power play and penalty kill. And then Wilkie was with Berkeley, so I didn't really get to play with them much.
How do you think those guys maybe helped lift your game?
Well, they always had us take draws in the offensive zone and came out with a strong first period or first shift. So then we were able to follow in their footsteps and continue that momentum.
That second year, you're I guess you're not really a breakout season, but your high point season translated well. You were drafted second round by Weyburn and fifth round by Swift Current. Just kind of take me through that draft process and the feelings and the whole experience.
Well, with the WHL, I was really happy, and my parents are proud, and all my friends congratulated me as soon as my name popped up with Swift. And your hopes are high because you don't know if you're going to get drafted or not. And then it put a big smile on your face and makes your month. And then Weyburn, it was a really exciting time as well, knowing that I have many options to play in my future years.
Was the fifth round by Swift Current maybe something that you thought maybe might have could have gone higher, or are you just happy to be drafted as a whole?
I think I'm just happy to be drafted as a whole because you never know how other people think you'll turn out and continue they know if you're going to continue to improve and all that.
Drafted by Swift Current, what's it like to be drafted in your own province? A lot of players, don't get that luxury. Sometimes they got to go to the States. Sometimes they got to go all the way to BC. Just kind of, what are your thoughts on that?
I was extremely happy that I could stay close to home and not have to move super far away because it's a big difference compared to being close to your house or home.
What excites you? What is it? I'm sorry. What excites you about the market of Swift Current?
Well, I know I have grandparents in Swift Current, so I've been there quite a lot, and I would just like to learn more about it because I think their training is really well and their coaches have good teaching and able to improve players a lot.
One of the few issues that Swift Current has run into over the past is players not wanting to go to a smaller market. Just kind of getting your take on regards to the market, if that really matters to you, and yeah.
No, it doesn't. It's just you go there and be happy that you're playing, make a difference on the team, and hope to bring better players in and have fun with the boys out of there.
Just looking at the roster, it's safe to say they're not really in contender mode since they won the championship a couple of years back. They've been in pretty much a full rebuild. Going to a team that might have some rough years in your first couple of seasons there, how would you handle that situation?
Well, you just have to keep on the positives, and if everybody wants to work hard and do their best, you always have a chance at being the top dogs. You just will be the underdogs, but you'll be able to surprise the people that don't think you'll make it that far.
What are some things that you would do to keep motivated during maybe a frustration of a poor stretch, poor outcomes in the standings?
Well, there's always room for improvement. So if you're being frustrated and you don't think you can get anywhere, you can just keep trying to improve and do the best you can, and then people will follow you after that.
Transitioning to Weyburn here. What about Weyburn kind of would make you consider an SJHL route?
Well, I heard Rich Pilon is a really good coach, and he's great at developing players. And I think Weyburn's in a rebuild situation as well, but they'll be the top sometime, and I think they're bringing in some good players and trying to change the league to a younger league, not just a 20-year-old league.
Would you be disappointed if, say, you had to start your career in Weyburn versus Swift Current?
No, I wouldn't. I would, if they wanted me to play there, I'd go there in a heartbeat and try to improve to become a WHL prospect.
Yeah, a lot of players prefer the WHL route. Correct me if you're wrong, you're still unsigned. Is the SJHL to the NCAA route something that's ever crossed your mind, or do you have your heart set on making the Broncos?
No, I still haven't really decided. I'm trying to figure out which way I want to go still. I'm keeping my options open.
If there's any college markets that you would want to go to, any university programs jump out to you?
No, not yet. I haven't had anybody contact me or anything.
Alrighty. Just going to your first year AAA with Warman. You being from Saskatoon, were you able to live at home, or did they want you in Warman?
No, I got to stay at home with same as a few other guys that were from Saskatoon as well.
What went behind the decision to commit to Warman?
I just knew I didn't really want to move away from home yet, and then they called and asked if you wanted to play or come to camp. So then I went there to test it out, and then I was able to sign there.
Were there any particular things that the coaches pitched to you that kind of sold you on the Wildcats?
I knew Courage Bear was there, and I've skated with him, and I knew he was a great guy and good coach. And then there was a few other guys that I knew on that team that were already signed, which helped me choose my decision to go there.
How do you think your first season went? I know you only got, I believe, 7 games in. You didn't get any points, however, which doesn't always mean everything. Just how do you think it went?
At the start, we had a little struggles getting scoring ability and all that, but we had a good group of guys and were able to bond as a team, and we had lots of fun together with the short time we had.
Do you think that with Warman being essentially an expansion or relocation team, with a lot of new guys coming from different places, has that kind of contributed to your slow start?
I could have. We had lots of time to come together, though. And then we had a lot of guys that haven't played in the league yet, so we just had to get used to the speed compared to the other leagues we were in.
Warman, they got a lot of veteran players on that team. I think they had 9 2003 borns, which means 9 senior players. I believe only 3 are currently signed. What are those guys? How are their morale in the locker room? Just kind of trying to stay motivated, trying to keep going what could be their last season?
Well, we always wanted to go out with a win, and they were just trying to improve and get better for the next years that are coming up for them. And then when the games ended, you could tell that they were sad, but they were happy that they were able to spend their last year with us.
For any scouts possibly watching, or coaches or GMs, some of these unsigned players, what do you got to say about some of these guys that maybe they need to know?
Well, all the 03s and that were hard workers, really good in the room, good guys, and they never put anybody down for mistakes they had, and they always had a positive attitude.
One thing with Warman, I'm kind of a sucker for uniforms. So just looking at the Wildcats uniforms, they kind of resemble the Vegas Golden Knights. Have you had a chance to see the Golden Knights chrome helmets, and what are your thoughts on those, and whether or not maybe Warman should explore something like that?
Well, I think they're really cool, and it would be nice to see if we could get those, but we probably won't because our colors don't match as well. But
transitioning into looking ahead to next season if things don't quite finish up here. What do you think you need to work on the most to give yourself the best shot with the Broncos next season?
Well, I think I need to get some muscle and gain a little bit more weight, and then just maintain my speed and defensive play and work on my offensive play, as I said before.
Who would you say your honest NHL comparison would be?
I think Patrice Bergeron, because he's a 2-foot player, 200-foot player, and he's a good centerman and is able to get points.
Well, that's one of those players. He's personally been one of my favorite players. I'm a Leafs fan, but you got to admire a player like Patrice who can do it all. Is there anything this offseason that you're going to do to kind of stay loose, maybe another sport, or are you pretty much going to focus on training?
I think I'm just going to focus on training, do skill skates through the summer, and then get more muscle, hit the gym with a trainer and all that.
Awesome. Well, for any Bronco fans watching, you're getting potentially a Patrice Bergeron-like player. Connor, I want to thank you for coming on the show today, and hopefully the season can get going again so you can at least get a couple more games under your belt. And if not, best of luck next season with the Broncos, trying to make them.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, Connor. That was Connor Gabriel with the Warman Wildcats, the 5th-round pick of the Swift Current Broncos. After the break, we will be exploring some commitments from around the leagues and maybe break down a couple players. We'll see you all after the break. Welcome back, everyone, to this week's edition of the AAA Show here on ASTV. I am your host, Jared Down, JD, joining us here again today to talk some commitments. JD, how's it going this week?
Oh, it's going pretty good. Thanks, Jared. Thanks for having me again. It's exciting to talk about these young kids making that step up to play higher level hockey. And obviously, we have some other news that we're going to talk about after, which is exciting as well.
Yeah, definitely. There's lots of news to break across the 3 prairie provinces. You know, we got a trade in Saskatchewan and some draft changes here in Manitoba, and a big week for commitments in the Alberta Elite Hockey League. You can see the list there. A pair of Flames committing, Logan Howe going to the Sherwood Park Crusaders, and Ben Narowski going to the Weyburn Red Wings. Also a pair of Okotoks Oilers, Liam Williams going to Spruce Grove Saints, Caden Scott going to the Notre Dame Hounds. That is Okotoks of the U18 AAA League, not the Alberta Junior League. Dwayne Jean heading to the Whitecourt Wolverines. Mason Svarich, a guy we're going to talk about after. I believe JD's got some points to make on him. Nolan McDowell, Maple Leaf Athletic Club, committed to the Grande Prairie Storm of the Alberta Junior Hockey League. Nolan was also listed in the past week by the PA Raiders, so that's exciting news for him. And Connor Burke, Calgary North Stars, going to the Lloydminster Bobcats. JD, what do you think of the list?
I think it's good. You got that mix up of going to the AJHL and you going to the SJHL. So that's awesome. You got 3 players going and playing in the SJ, and it's like I said last week, it's a big commitment for these kids. It's good to see a goalie on that list. You know, I'm a goalie, so I feel for the guy. And just like in any league, though, with goalies, it's a little bit harder, you know, maybe to make that step to play in the league that he's in right now, going up to playing junior A. And it's the same in the NHL. When goalies are playing in the AHL, it's a little bit more of a harder step for them to play competitively a full, you know, when they're playing 50, 60 games a year, it's, you know, when you're playing an 82 game season, it lags on you, and making that step of playing more games, getting more starts, more back-to-backs, you're playing during the week. Yeah, it's exciting. And just any of these kids, it's exciting stuff.
Yeah, and like you said, the goaltending, it's one of those things that can be deceiving at times. You know, you see a AAA goalie, he might have a 3.3 goals against average and, you know, a high 800 save percentage, but it might just be a high scoring league, and he gets up to that next level and his game might translate a little better than people think.
Well, and with these kids too, they're growing. This kid might finally fill out when he is, because he's an 03, so he'd be 18. So he's probably done his growing, but for goaltenders too, like you can grow between 14 and 15. So your first and second year bantam, and then even in a midget, you're growing. Like you're growing to maybe another, you know, half an inch or 2, 3, 4 inches, and that makes a difference for a goaltender. Being able to cover that top of the net and just being athletic is another big part as well.
Yeah, and then you look at a guy like Mason Svarich. You know, he's coming east to Kindersley Klippers. Another one of the Alberta boys coming to the prairies again, and you know, 5'10", 160. He's going to get a chance to probably get some ice time there. You know, not a great year statistically last year, but you can see that he's making a jump this season. What are your thoughts on him?
Well, and when I was looking up this player and kind of seeing, I'm pretty sure he just committed on the 18th to Kindersley of this month. So it's just a recent commit, which is awesome. The Klippers have 10 or 11 rookies on their roster of 26 players. So they have a mix of young and veteran players, which is nice to see. But it seemed like he did pretty well when he's playing U16 AAA. And, you know, he got those, you know, he was just over a point a game player. And, you know, and then he made that jump into U18, which is a big jump for anybody. Because like I said, you grow as well as the competitive and the pace of play and all that changes for you. So it might take you, you know, not everybody's Connor McDowell that can go from playing, you know, scoring 85 or 81 points playing bantam and then going into midget prep and scoring 87 and having 87 points. You know, these kids, it takes maybe a year for them to develop their game to play at the U18 level.
Yeah, it's different pace, and like you said, the jump can be a little more difficult from others. And you know, sometimes, you know, we're just kind of getting into covering these leagues here, and we don't know the full story. It's hard to say where this guy might have been in the lineup last year. You know, that could have also been a big factor.
Oh,
go ahead.
And you know, he's played some competitive hockey as well in the leagues that he has played in, being the Alberta Minor Midget Hockey League, and then he played some obviously in the Alberta Elite Hockey League, and then he played in the you know, the Alberta Bantam Hockey League as well. And so I feel like he's deserved the, you know, to sign that commitment letter and play in the MJHL, and I hope that he can make that jump, and soon enough he'll be wearing a Clipper uniform. You
betcha. Guy we were just briefly talking about before, Nolan McDowell, hometown Edmonton. He committed to the Grande Prairie Storm. You know, last year he played down in the States for the Rocky Mountain Rough Riders. I tried for the life of me to try and find his record, but couldn't quite do it. But obviously good numbers, a 2.34 goals against average and 911 save percentage. Those are great numbers for a midget goalie, or U18 goalie, pardon me. And you know, he comes back home to Edmonton this year, and limited action numbers don't really speak for itself. They are held out for a while, and it takes a little while to get into game form, especially for these young kids. And I was trying to find some game tape on this guy, and in the limited videos I could find, he's got that calm demeanor in net. He doesn't seem to get overly out of position. He kind of has that Carey Price movement where he's always kind of in position, which I think is going to go a long ways in his adjustment into the Alberta Junior Hockey League.
Well, and like I said, it for a goaltender, it's a little bit harder to jump up from bantam to midget to junior A. So, and he's going to basically he's going to Northern Alberta. He's from Edmonton, so it's not that far away from Edmonton. But looking at his record when he was playing in the States, very, very good numbers: 2.34 goals against average, 9.11 save percentage, and those numbers in any league is outstanding for a goaltender. And he got 30 games in, which is awesome. And I'm not sure what league he did play in. But and it might be different hockey down there that they play in the States. I assume if it's Rocky Mountain, he's playing either in Montana, Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, somewhere in that area, I would imagine. Yeah,
I was trying to find that out today. The internet just not quite cooperating. I believe it's somewhere down in Colorado. It was the way their websites are formatted around those leagues was made a little tough to navigate. I believe is the American Elite Hockey League that it was in. But looking at just the Grande Prairie roster that he's going to be trying to compete for next year, they got 3 goalies on the roster according to their website. One's a 01, one's an 02, one's an 03, one's a hometown boy. All but one goalie, I guess all goalies are under 6'1". One goalie 6 feet, and the other 2 5'11". Nolan being a bigger guy will definitely help with that competitiveness. Maybe he's a little more raw. He's got that size that can maybe combine that with that calm demeanor that I talked about earlier. Even if that rawness takes a little while to grow on him there, he should be able to compete, I would think. I'm excited to see what he can do. I've always been a fan of watching goalies, and he's structurally sound by the looks of it, and I think he can have a good shot at competing for that team.
Yeah, and like you said, the height really makes a difference. You look at goalies in the NHL now. I know Sweden has kind of taken over for having those big, tall goaltenders, but it seems like that's the way that the future's going for goaltenders is tall, athletic, and and there are shorter goaltenders. Like you look at a guy even like Carter Hart's. I'm pretty sure he's obviously, I think, smaller than 6'2", but he's athletic enough where he can be up or down, but he can still cover the same amount of net and be just as athletic going from post to post and covering his crease and protecting it and rebound control and all that kind of stuff. And in a league like that, where the pace is so much probably faster than midget AAA hockey, or sorry, U18 AAA. Excuse me for anybody that doesn't like the word midget anymore. Having that good rebound control is key because, if you leave one in front of the net and you're on the other, these guys are just fast enough where the puck's going to be in the net by the time you turn around and try to go to the other side. So, I've watched junior A hockey and even the AAHL. It's the same thing. They have to have proper rebound control to be able to just obviously send the puck where it needs to go.
Yeah, another thing you got to look at is for a lot of these Alberta Junior Hockey League teams is they haven't played as much, and it's going to be a lot more of a wide open game. And when you look at smaller goaltenders in leagues, and whether it's the NHL or junior, the smaller goaltenders tend to succeed in teams that are more defensively sound. And when you look at the Dallas Stars, Hudobin, he's a smaller goalie. I believe he's only 5'11", possibly 6 feet. And they had a really good defensively team, and he's able to succeed. But when those breakdowns happen and pucks are going side to side, it's harder for those guys to stay at the level of some of these bigger goalies. So that's where I think McDowell might have an advantage early on.
Yeah, and hopefully he can crack the Storm lineup right out of camp. Some of those goalies might end up going playing somewhere else or haven't played, so they're a little rusty. But I know all these guys probably haven't. They haven't had much game experience this year, which sucks. And at least out here in Saskatchewan, it doesn't sound like there's going to be any coming back. I know in Alberta they're confirmed that they're going to bring back the AJHL, which is awesome. They're going to have a season. We know the WHL is going to have a season. So at least for those guys, there's an opportunity. And even for him, if he goes to camp and he can try out and make the team, even as a third goaltender, they'll still get that experience of being around the guys, watching the game, and studying the difference of junior A to U18.
Exactly. As before we transition into the Saskatchewan AAA Hockey League, we're just going to go to a quick word from our sponsors. Welcome back, everyone, to the AAA Show. I'm your host, Jared Down, JD from the SAS Sports Show, joining me once again this week. Next up, we're going to talk a little Saskatchewan male U18 AAA Hockey League commitments. Not quite as active as the Alberta Junior Hockey League. I would assume the announcement with the AJHL coming back maybe played a bit of a factor into that. Some of these teams trying to add some depth, signing some of these 03-born players. Pair of commitments this week. Tanner Howe, forward of the Prince Albert Mintos, going to the Weyburn Red Wings, notably an 05 there, signing early. Jackson Lucia of the Notre Dame Hounds, defenseman, one of many players out of this league heading to Blackfalds for next season. Blackfalds has been diving quite a bit into this league over the past couple of weeks, pulling guys from all over Saskatoon and around. JD, what are your thoughts on this week's commitments out of this league?
Well, I'm going to start obviously with Tanner. What intrigues me the most about this commitment is that he's 16. He's an 05 player. He had his first year in Prince Albert. Obviously, like everybody else, he didn't have a whole lot of points. So I think he rolled into the season 4 points, and he made that jump from playing Bantam AA last season and in Saskatchewan AA Hockey League for the Prince Albert Pops, and he ended up last year 75 points and then 7 playoffs. Like, that is just it's just unreal for this young kid. He was. So you know that he's a scorer, and he also passes the puck, which is a good thing to see as well. And it just, like I said, what intrigued me the most was that he's an 05. And a lot of these commitments that we've been seeing are 02s or 03s. So guys that are already in their first and second year midget.
Yeah, it's not often I see a player with this kind of stats and numbers that signed to the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League before committing to the WHL. It starts to make you wonder, maybe this kid is thinking of possibly going the college route.
And that could be the route that he wants to take. And just when he was drafted, just a side note there as well, he was drafted in the first round. He was taken second overall in that draft. So you can see that Weyburn saw something in him that they really liked to draft him in the second overall pick. And maybe he wants to go play in Division I, or maybe he just wants to get that junior hockey experience now and then the opportunity, he was also drafted to the Regina Pats in I think the 4th round, the 47th overall in that, no, that would be the 2nd round. Excuse me.
Yeah, I believe it was
the 4th round. And the 70, 4th round. And so he has that option that he has committed to Weyburn. So obviously he wants to go that junior A route for now. And I'm not sure what his plans are, but if he wants to go to college, that's, American college, and that's a good opportunity for him as well. And, like I said, he had 5 games played. He had 4 points.
Yeah. And, we haven't had the opportunity to talk to Tanner or anyone in the Weyburn Red Wings organization yet. But when you see guys, this kind of numbers fall to the 4th round, height could be a partial problem there too, that why guys might have passed. But like we said, the college route, there could be guys, teams that did their homework and like talked to Tanner in the pre-draft process, and maybe they were a little worried that maybe college could be an option. And maybe that's why you slipped. You see that with some kids who, they're definitely considering it, and that contributes into why they fall, because teams don't want to draft guys early that are going to maybe take the chance of going that college route. But at the same time, you made a good point that, he could see 1 year in Weyburn as a good development aspect for him to helping him get to the Regina Pats. Sorry.
Well, and he's only 16 too. And he's already signed his commitment letter to go play in Weyburn. So there's something going on there that obviously we don't know. This is just all by assumption, everyone. This is just my opinion, but it is like all the committed players that we've seen, they're all 02s, 03s, some 04s, but I don't think this is the first one that I've seen this year that's an 05 signing his commitment letter. And that's a big step for him moving away from home, because he's played in Prince Albert his whole hockey career, playing for the Pirates in Bantam AA, and then playing for the Mintos, cracking the Mintos roster. So he's going completely opposite direction in Saskatchewan to go play hockey. And I know the Weyburn Red Wings have a very rich history of, having a good junior A program and being competitive every year in the SJHL. Obviously, they might have had a bad year the year before to get that number 2 pick. They might have traded up for it. I'm not 100% sure. But it's good to see that he's possibly could get the opportunity to, crack that roster this fall.
Yeah, and it looks like he's got the skill set that, as a first year, he could make some waves in that league. And, maybe that's his mindset. If he can make some waves, Regina's kind of in that rebuilding process, and they got some young talent, and like you said, Connor Bedard, and a year or two down the road, if Tanner's lighting it up, building that confidence in the SJ, he could be a good pairing to bring him up and create some chemistry with the Pats.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see him in that Red Wing uniform, hopefully this fall.
Exactly. Transitioning now into the Manitoba AAA Hockey League, just a pair of signings. Isaiah Kinnevan-Thong, sorry. I don't know exactly if I probably butchered that, but the Winnipeg Bruins, committed to the OCN Blizzard. And another goalie, Eric Reed of the Southwest Cougars, committed to his hometown, Verdun Oil Capitals, I believe his hometown. I could be wrong on that. What are your thoughts so far on that?
Well, you got another young guy too. You had a 17-year-old. He's committing to a team in Manitoba. So he's and OCN is, I've just learned, they are on a First Nations reserve. They are that's where their hockey team is located in northern Manitoba, which I think is great. They've, from what I've seen, they had a rich history, winning seasons in the MJHL, and looks like, I hope Isaiah, gets that opportunity. He is a D-man. I'm not sure his height, but obviously D-man nowadays are up in that 6 foot range. And from what I know, as long as if you can skate backwards really well, I think you'll make a good defenseman. as well. And then it's good to see another goalie as well, making that jump to play junior A hockey. And it's just sad to see, leagues like the MJ and the SJ. Obviously, the AJ is coming back. I highly doubt that BCHL is going to come back. But all these leagues not having hockey seasons this year. Obviously, some leagues are, like I said, the AJ and now the WHL is. But
yeah, I wonder if the 04 and Isaiah, he could come back next year and play a level or a year of AAA if they allow it. But obviously, this could be a strategic move by him. There's a greater chance of the MJ making it work than his U18 AAA team. So this allows him to guarantee himself a camp invite next year and possibly a full season where it could be less likely the U18. Other big news out of the MJ, which we're excited to talk about, is the MJ announcing the move from the U16 draft to the U17 draft. All current 06-born draft eligible players will be carried forward into the inaugural U17 MJHL draft held in the spring of 2022. Big news.
And like you and I were talking about before the show, I've a few players about this. If if different leagues should start to do this, and I read an article on this as well, and the commissioner stated that one of the reasons behind this is it gives players another year to develop before making that jump to the MJ, because you get a lot of kids that are just dynamite out of bantam and into midget, and they get into junior A, being drafted and stuff like that. It's kind of fight or flight, or I don't want to say hit and miss, but it's kind of one of those situations where it really determines if they're going to be able to play at that level competitively for the whole season. And on some parts, I agree with this, to give those kids another year to develop their skills. But on the other hand, you're taking away a year that they could possibly be able to play junior A hockey.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how it plays out. At the same time, I think it's going to, your draft capital in season, it's going to increase value, right? These players are going to be more of a sure thing. I don't want to, not necessarily a loss, but you're going to know more what you're getting when you make your draft picks. I'm going to kind of compare it to another sport in the NFL, where you see so many of these draft picks. You tend to know more what you're getting when those drafts happen. Their players are more well-rounded. They're a couple years older compared to other leagues, and you see them impacting much earlier. Whereas, you look across the Canadian Junior Hockey League, sometimes these draft picks, you don't know what you're getting by the time they're fully ready to come to junior hockey. You look at the way some of these players, they're also picked by WHL teams, right? So you go through the draft and you're looking at these guys. Okay, well, this kid's a third-round pick of Brandon. Well, I don't know. We'll take a swing at him in the fifth round. Chances of him coming to play for us is pretty slim. Whereas you get to the U17 now, and you're looking at guys like, well, this guy's played a year or two midget, and he's not cracking the roster. Well, maybe we should take a chance on him a little earlier.
Well, and I apologize for my previous statement. Actually, they don't get a year taken away, because the benefit to this as well is they can play in their 16-year-old season. If they commit get drafted and they commit right away, they could possibly crack the roster that fall, instead of waiting a whole year to, like in the WHL, when they get drafted as 15, sometimes 14 or 15-year-olds, depending on where they are when their birthday is. But if this is the route that they want to go, then all for the MJHL, for trying to develop players and having those players 1 year older, one more year of midget under their belt, and then come play, instead of coming. Some of the kids are first year midget or second year bantam coming to coming to, play, and they're just their skills just need to be worked on, which is 95% of the time that's the case. Is you bring a 16-year-old into camp, he's more than likely probably not going to make the team. Not everybody is Connor McDowell or some of those players that have cracked the roster at 16 and haven't had to go back down to their U18 team. But if that's what they want to do, then to try to develop more talent in Manitoba, full on, that's good for them.
Yeah, I also wonder how this is going to translate into the U18 hockey. Delaying that draft year by 1 year, I wonder if it's going to maybe up the competitiveness of that league, because some of these players, they're passed on maybe in the WHL draft, and they have a little more something to prove. They're a little more mature. They know what to work on a little more. And that first year of U18 is going to mean that much more. And trying to make the most progress in that first year could go a long ways into where your career goes, right?
Well, and the fact of the thing that I like, or that sucks, I should say, for this, is the fact that the kids that are 16 years old right now, I would say, 16, they're not going to get drafted this year. They're going to have to wait until next spring, to get drafted. Maybe those kids that are 17 years old that haven't been drafted yet, in Manitoba, they have to wait now another year. So they might be committing at 18 if they get drafted next spring. So that aspect I don't really like, or I shouldn't say I don't like it. I feel for the kids that are in that age group that I just mentioned.
Yeah, it's hard. It's kind of an insult to injury, right? These kids, they had their careers put on hold essentially. Manitoba has been one of the more strict provinces when it comes to minor sports, and some of these kids, this is all they had to look forward to for this coming up off season, of maybe going to a team where the likelihood of them maybe playing hockey next fall is increased. But now you look at this, what would have been their draft year. They could potentially go a season and 3 quarters without playing in their draft year,
which is tough to see.
It is, and I would have liked if the MJ would have. I don't know how you would have done it to make this kind of tweak work. All you're doing if you don't move these players back is you're just kind of watering down the draft pool for the U17 draft, because what would normally be there is players who already have the rights taken and selected. So I think, but one thing to look at the positives as an MJ perspective is this is going to be a big draft for a lot of teams. The importance is going to be huge, for teams that maybe at the bottom of the standings that have been kind of struggling to find the right guys to build their program. I think this could be a way to maybe hit the reset button and kind of level the league out, because for those of you that don't know, the MJHL has a history of kind of being top heavy. If some of these bottom guys can kind of hang on to the draft picks and maybe even stock the pile a little bit, they could get some good young talent and carry through for the next couple of years pretty well.
Well, and like you said at the beginning there, when we first started talking about it, I truly agree with you that this could heighten the development and the skill that now comes to the draft of 2022 for the MJHL. These kids, hopefully, if hockey comes back, and I really hope it does in the fall, these kids are going to have a whole nother season of U18 underneath their belt, that without the stress of, am I going to make that MJ team or anything like that, they can just play. They can just play hockey with not as much worry. Obviously, there's always going to be stress of the fact of being drafted either in the MJ, the SJ, or any league in the Canadian Junior Hockey League. It's just it's maybe a little less stressful for them.
Yeah, and I wonder if it's going to help the player morale too. Like, you look at a kid who's say 15 or 16 getting drafted into the WHL, and it's big for them. It's great news, but at the same time, a lot of them are so raw, and anything could happen, and that draft order doesn't necessarily mean much. You see lots of guys going 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round that develop into really good players. So delaying that year, I think, like we said, upping the talent pool creates maybe a higher importance into the draft. Players might be a little more excited to be taken in the MJHL draft, whereas a lot of kids at their age are more focused on the WHL, where okay, an MJHL took a chance on me, great, let's try and get to the dub. Whereas this year, a lot of these kids might not be drafted by the dub, like I mentioned earlier, and I think this could be a way of, all right, like watching the league, kind of seeing how the standings are folding out, like I'm rated pretty high, like what teams might be looking at me, kind of thing. Just maybe a little more, not the word I'm looking for is awareness, I guess, by both the players and the teams, I guess.
Well, and kind of to add on to that as well, you're going to get like with the heighten of development, these kids playing another year, they, and then you come into the spring of 2022, and some of these MJ teams might have to unload on a lot of their maybe older players have aged out, and they become a little less heavy on the older players, and now they got to bring some of that young talent in, and these kids might be more ready to play than, let's say, as when they're drafted at, I would say if they push it back a year, so they would have been drafted in their 15-year-old year.
Yeah, and another thing to look at is like something we talked about when I first had you on the show. We talked about how in the Saskatchewan League, we're seeing so many players leave the province, and I wonder if this is also a way to maybe maintain some of that provincial talent, right? You know which guys are rights are where, what the talent is where, and what guys are likely to stay, right? And you can make sure you're drafting players who are going to be playing for you that are from the province that might help with that ticket sales and Manitoba pride.
Yeah, and like you said, I think that could be one of the things why they did that, is to kind of keep more players in Manitoba and to keep more of those local guys, because those are the people that are going to put fans in the stands, is those local boys. You look at any small town team, you have a couple guys that are from that town. The whole town is going to come and watch you play. And I'm not saying that they don't now, because I know the SJHL or any of these small town teams in Saskatchewan, their barns are full every night because they just love their hockey. It's just something to do on a Friday night.
For a lot of these small towns, it's their way of social gathering, right? Like we mentioned in the MJHL with OCN being on the reserve there. I've been to OCN lots. I've played hockey there lots. Wayway Capital, also another reserve team in the MJHL, and those barns are fun to play in, and they get loud. It's a completely different environment, and in communities like that might be a little smaller, having those local boys in areas that take so much more pride in their heritage, and that it goes a long ways into ticket sales and jersey sales. That's another thing that is a big seller in those small markets.
Well, and the kids too. The kids, like the small kids too. They love just meeting their favorite player and going to go skate with them, or seeing them coming to read books at their elementary school, or any sort of that thing. Like you look at a town like, let's say Kindersley, for instance. I think it's roughly around 5,000, 6,000 people. And I imagine everybody in that town and the surrounding area loves to come watch the Klippers play on a Friday night. And Kindersley obviously has done well in the past, going to the RBC Cup, and pretty sure winning it back in 2010 or 9, somewhere in that area. But yeah, it's important. It's important.
Yeah, and I grew up in an MJ town, Swan River, until I was about 13. And when I was a little kid, that was who you looked up to. The NHL was one thing, but the players you got to see in person and see in the community means a lot more. And when you can take the family aspect and maybe it's your friend's cousin or your friend's brother, that just adds to the environment in a small town.
Yeah, it's great. And hopefully we see them back in the fall.
Yeah, it's looking like just the Alberta so far. The SJ is, from what I've been reading, has made some proposals to the Saskatchewan government about possibly playing in a hub, as unfortunately the MJHL announced they will not be returning. And with the BC still trying to get approval with the WHL, it's pretty unlikely that I think the BCHL sees action this spring. But JD, thanks for joining me on this week's edition.
Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you on. You'll be on plenty more episodes to come, talking commitments, news. Unfortunately, we don't have any live action to talk about, but for now, we got to make the most of the commitments and signings and have some fun with it.
Yeah, I'm excited. Should be a good time. And it's an exciting time for all these kids, so I'm excited to talk about it as much as we can.
For anyone looking to catch another episode, JD has a SAS Sports Show on Thursdays at, is it 7?
5 p.m. Central Time.
Yeah. 5 p.m. Central Time. So you can catch that. JD talks baseball, hockey, football, whatever Saskatchewan has to offer. JD, well, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you maybe next week.
Thanks, Jared.
That was JD of the SAS Sports Show on ASTV, joining me to talk commitments, signings, and all that fun stuff. Once again, the show is every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central. Thanks for watching another episode, and we'll see you guys all next week.